Hello and welcome to this Kali Fundamentals lesson. I'm your host, Robert Smith, and I'm very excited to be here with you today. So, you may have already seen some networking commands. You may be familiar with some networking commands, but maybe you're asking yourself, what are some of the differences between Linux, Kali, and Windows with respect to, with Windows systems, the command to look at an interface may be different than that of a Linux system. Or I tried a few things on my Windows system that don't seem to work on Linux. That's what we're going to be looking at today. So when you walk away from this lesson, you should have a high level understanding of some key networking commands and a high level understanding of when these commands should be used based on our discussions and points here today. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So I've just got a few commands here to get us started and some screenshots that we'll go over here together. So you've probably seen me using ping already, and you probably have run into ping and used ping before in maybe school, or maybe you're working on the support desk or something like that, or for an organization and you have to use ping. Essentially what ping does here is it's the same thing as it is on a Windows system. It's just ping in an IP address or a domain name. Now the primary difference to keep in mind between ping here is that if you get a response and you don't do a Control-C when you're using ping, it's just going to continue to ping until you stop it. So the difference here is with Windows, when you do a ping, it'll ping a couple times and stop. With a Linux-based system, it's going to continue to ping until you stop it. Now, ifconfig is going to be the way that we look at interface information on Kali systems, Linux systems in general. As you can see here, it gives us a kind of layout on the interface IP address, the network address, broadcast address, etc. It gives us some packet information and additional stuff like that. And then that's your loopback interface there that's running on the system as well. Now, a command I wanted to add in here, because we're looking at doing security testing and things of that nature, is ifconfig promisc. Now, there's a component in between the ifconfig and promiscuous that's not listed here because it varies depending on what you want to make promiscuous. Now, making an interface promiscuous is essentially going to mean that traffic it wouldn't otherwise pick up on or listen to, it's going to pick up on everything and listen to everything. And this could be good for packet captures. You may notice when you use tools like Wireshark or something like that, that it will run in promiscuous mode and collect all of the data coming across an interface. So this is how you can manually turn promiscuous mode on. What you'll do is you'll notice that it didn't have the interface information in between ifconfig and promiscuous, and so it didn't find a device. When we add that Ethernet 0 there, like we saw in the ifconfig information, we then see after we do a quick check that it's running in promiscuous mode, which is what we've got here. If you need to turn that off, you just add a minus sign in front of the promisc, and you'll notice here that it's no longer running in promiscuous mode in that space like it was before. Now, the other command that I have here is traceroute, and what that does is that's like a troubleshooting tool that can help you kind of map out a path or see the route to a particular domain or maybe a particular internal system. So in this case, I was just trying to get it to look up my Google DNS, but it didn't reach it because it's got a 30 hop max. But in this case, it would list out maybe on the internal systems the pathway that a route takes, or that the communications will take to get to an end system. So with those things in mind, let's do a quick check on learning. So which command allows you to set an interface to promiscuous mode? All right, so you may be thinking, well, I know that ifconfig is not the case because that shows me interface information. I know what ping does, definitely not ping. Ping doesn't do anything but give us some feedback from a system. Promiscuous or promisc enabled is not the case because we don't have any way that we're identifying the interface that's going to run in promiscuous mode, and it's missing a component, and we didn't even use enabled when we were going through that together. So the likely choice here is going to be ifconfig. You'll have an interface type with a number, and promisc, and that will enable promisc. And remember, if we want to disable promiscuous mode, we just put a minus out in front of the promisc command. So great job on that. Let's go ahead and jump into our next set of commands. Now, These are a few additional commands that will help you in things like troubleshooting, looking up domain information, as well as looking up your wireless interface information. Now, I don't have any wireless cards or anything like that that are running on my instance, so you'll notice when you look at the IWconfig that it doesn't have any wireless extensions, and so that's okay because I shouldn't. I haven't set any of that up, but if you did and you were troubleshooting that, you would be able to see here whether or not your instance was picking up your wireless information. Now, as you get into security testing and as you get into working with this distribution, NetStat is a wonderful, wonderful thing to know. I actually don't have a switch on the end of this, which is like a dash and a set of letters, but I love to use, that's a horrible A, ANTP, which gives me several different outputs, but it's primarily going to focus on the listening and connected systems or ports that are open and listening and what they're connected to. The NetStat in general is just going to give you a slew of information about the different things that are listening and running on a system, but a great command to know and something you're going to want to add to your toolbox. NSLookup, now you'll notice here that I used cybrary.it. What this does is it's going to point out some internal systems that are handling DNS queries, and then it's going to give me the responses from those systems like the Cybrary systems. Now, of course, this is for educational purposes. This is, the public DNS information, but you don't want to go any further in doing any tool utilization or manipulation on these systems without explicit permission. But if you're doing some general troubleshooting internally, maybe you're trying to figure out if your DNS server is busted or you're not getting responses here, or maybe you're not getting responses from here, that's a good way to start troubleshooting and checking some information out. An additional tool that you can use is called Dig. It's a domain information groper, and that's going to provide these feedbacks over here, and it's just a little bit more extensive. You'll see we got the same answers with respect to the Cybrary public DNS servers. You'll see here that we also got feedback from our internal DNS server. So this is just a little bit more verbose than Dig, but it can definitely provide you some additional troubleshooting information as you're trying to figure out or work your way through issues. So with that in mind, let's do a check on learning. Which command could assist in DNS troubleshooting issues? Well, as we indicated earlier, ping definitely, could be used to maybe ping a server or ping a DNS server and see if it responds. That could be used, but that's not specifically going to give us DNS information. Ifconfig, that is if there's an interface issue and, that would not be directly related to DNS issues. NetStat works with us on connections and what's actively connected. So Dig, again, is the domain information groper, which we could use for troubleshooting DNS issues. There are other tools that you could use, but in the context of this question, that is the correct answer. So that's it. We did a very brief lesson today over some network commands. We gave you a high-level introduction to things like ping and ifconfig, traceroute, NetStat, Dig, IWconfig. All of those things are going to be foundational as you move into troubleshooting your Linux distributions, as you work on doing security testing and things of that nature. And so with all of that in mind, I want to thank you for your time again today, and I look forward to seeing you soon.